Hey guys, hello, hello, hello. My name is Linda Murray Bullock. They call me the business plug, and you're just joining the business plugs mixer. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. I am so excited about today's show. We are rescheduled from last week. Some of you wanted to hear it last week, but guess what? Go ahead and share it amongst your friends. Tag your family. Like, you're going to want to be very, very engaged in this conversation. Have a great guest for you to meet. Before I go there, I want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, if you are interested in getting your business certified so that you can get more money consistently, recurrently every month, then reach out to me and let's talk about how to get your business certified locally and at the state level. And if you're really ambitious, let's talk about doing it at the federal levels too. Right now, I have a goal of 124 businesses for this calendar year to help them get certified. And if that's something that interests you, then go ahead and reach out to me in the links that are in the wherever you're watching this, right? The next thing I want to tell you is that it's getting ready to be reevaluating how we start our businesses, right? And so I am going to host an online session for people that want to firm up the business idea they've already started. I'm working with people who are 3 years or more, who are at least making $10,000 in revenue. Again, trying to do a 360 assessment of your business to help you firm up your business idea. So if that interests you too, go ahead and click the link. Now that I got all the housekeeping done and my team will be happy that all that's done, I can introduce my guest. So good afternoon and welcome to the Business Plugs Mixer, Jeff. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. So tell my guest who you are.
Sure. So I'm an attorney. I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization named after me, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. We have as our mission freeing people who are wrongfully imprisoned and to pursue policy changes aimed at preventing those injustices from happening in the first place. So far, we've been able to free 14 people. We helped pass 3 laws and an additional 6 as key members of a national coalition group called It Could Happen to You. I have a master's degree in criminal justice. My thesis is written on wrongful conviction, cause, and reform. And I got started with doing this life work, this mission, because I survived 16 years in prison myself. I was arrested when I was 16 for murder and rape, which I did not commit. Happened in Westchester, which is in the suburbs in New York. I turned 17 by the time the trial rolled around. I lost the trial despite the DNA not matching me. That was caused by a coerced false confession, prosecutorial misconduct, fraud by the medical examiner, terrible public defender. I got a 15 to life sentence, and I lost 7 appeals, got turned down for parole, ultimately was exonerated, was proven innocent through further DNA testing via the DNA data bank that affirmed my innocence, identified the actual perpetrator. That was 18 years ago. So I've been home ever since, and I have this life mission, this life purpose of freeing people in the same position I was once in and preventing what happened to me from happening to others.
Oh, wow. And so, like, you said 7 times?
I lost 7 appeals. Yes, I kept appealing to this, the verdict and raising issue of my being innocent based on the DNA and, my constitutional rights being violated. So yes, I kept fighting. I never stopped fighting. If I had given up, if I had quit, I would not have ultimately been exonerated. I certainly wouldn't be doing this interview here with you this afternoon.
Exactly, exactly. So going through that has to have some kind of mental, and financial or time, if not money, but time spent redoing it and reappealing, right?
Yeah, I was provided with a public defender, so I mean it didn't cost me money to appeal it. I mean, it definitely cost me the time. I mean, you
Yeah,
think about from age 17 to 32, that's really developmental years, key years. I mean,
exactly.
just to quickly concretize, I didn't graduate high school, I didn't go to the prom, I didn't finish my education at a traditional age, I didn't start a business, I didn't get married, I didn't have kids. When I was released, I did things for the first time that many people
Mm,
would have done during those formative years. For example, I got a driver's license. I finally went shopping once on my own, and um, live by myself and have to write a check and, balance a budget. So I feel like all those were particular challenges. But you
Absolutely.
right that there's a mental health aspect to it. I mean, I had to keep fighting off feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, thoughts of giving up, occasionally thinking about suicidal ideation. But ultimately, I knew that nobody was coming to my rescue. And
Mm.
I had to hold it together to go and recruit somebody I didn't know already that could help build that bridge between me and the ultimate legal help that I knew that I needed in order to clear my name and regain my freedom.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you being, I mean, an innocent man being wrongfully accused, and then having all those years robbed from you. And so you've created your foundation helping people that are in that cycle.
Correct. Yes. Yes, I did. When I was released, thank God I got a scholarship from Mercy College, which is now Mercy University. So I
Mhm.
finished the bachelor's degree because the college education, the funding for college education for prisoners was cut. So I got a scholarship. I finished that. I was an individual advocate for 5 years. I was speaking professionally, and I was a weekly columnist. So that was how I was earning some money. I was trading privacy for awareness by doing media and ultimately new media interviews, regularly meeting with elected officials. Didn't get into law school, so went to grad school, got the master's degree, finally got compensated, used some of the money to ramp the advocacy work up to the next level. And at some point, I got tired of sitting in the front row in the courtroom. I wanted to sit at the defense table. I wanted to be able to represent some of the clients, make some of the arguments, hence going to law school, getting the law license, and becoming an attorney.
I love it. I love it. And so you're licensed to practice in the state of New York City, of New York.
State of New York, yeah, yes, and yes, I'm licensed to practice in the state of New York and a few federal courts that are the Southern District and Eastern District, which are also in New York.
Okay, okay. And so talk about the people who have reached out to you for hope, right? Like what's the commonality among the men and women who have reached out to you?
Well, they were, they were all wrongfully imprisoned. They all were indigent, so they didn't have money to hire a top-notch lawyer and have investigator and have experts, so that they weren't able to present the most robust defense that was available to them. So those things are common. Prosecutorial misconduct is a factor that runs through many wrongful conviction cases. And also one last commonality: the causes of wrongful conviction are known, from misidentification to coerced false confessions to lying informants to inept public defenders. So there's certain patterns that are in all those types of evidence that
Mhm.
appear in the cases that have ended in a DNA exoneration. So you extract those patterns and have that in mind when me and my team are considering whether to accept the case or not. We're considering what the prosecution uses evidence of guilt, and we're looking for the presence of any of those type of patterns in that evidence. And that speaks to us about whether or not we believe the innocence claim. And the second thing is we're looking at beyond that is, viability. Do we see a potential path for victory? So you might look at the record to decide if you believe someone's innocent or not, but that's not going to be how you win the case.
Mm.
You have the court's not going to allow you to relitigate. You have to find some previously unknown evidence of innocence, which could potentially uh, have led to a different outcome. You have to
Mhm.
make an assessment within that. What is the likelihood, that all these leads would break right? If they did break right, would that be enough? What is the time and financial cost that it would take to actually run all these things down? And so based on the totality of those circumstances, my team and I, we make a decision whether the case is approved or not. I don't decree from on high. I don't believe in that. So it's a consensus. So if we're going to accept or reject the case analyst and I, we have to persuade the other of our viewpoint and we reach a consensus. Otherwise, the
Mm.
case is not closed. Otherwise, the case is not accepted.
How many cases do you average a year?
Well, we're working on 14, but I really think that you mean to ask me how many people are applying for help.
That's exactly what that's exactly my
Yes,
intention.
yeah, I figured. Several hundred people apply per year, and every time I do a media or a new media appearance, there's always a short spike ramp up of additional requests for help that are made.
And so do you have, because I can imagine that you may have the prisoner, him or herself, but you also have the families.
Yes, families, friends, advocates. Also, they see or hear of me. They reach out to me, whether that's through the web form on my website, deskovic.org, deskovic.org, or through social media, or the applicants themselves. I mean, our address is public. I want people to be able to find us. So it
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes from people associated with those who are alleged wrongfully imprisoned, and sometimes it's from the applicants themselves.
I can imagine. And so, do you have so you're in New York? Do you have a network? Are you involved with a network that covers the other states?
Yes, that's called the Innocence Network Conference. There's a website with that, and they even have a tab. You click on it, it says "Where is help," and you click on it, and it lists the entities that are listed in what state. So, notwithstanding the fact that we're only able to do cases in New York, as you might imagine, people reach out to me across the country, and everybody thinks they have such an incredible case that I'm going to ignore the geographical limitation and jump on their case. But unfortunately, that's not possible. So, for one thing, it's a lot of money to try to run an out-of-state non-DNA case. For a
Absolutely.
second. So our second thing, there's a financial aspect. I mean, I'll share. We're on the business plug, so I'm not, and we're a nonprofit, so we're transparent. That's the trade-off that we make. The public can expect our books and ask questions in exchange for that, tax exempt status. So we hover between $150,000 to $200,000 and annual budget, and we have 13 cases that are active. We have another 5 that are approved but are waiting. So just from a financial point of view, we can't take cases in other jurisdictions. Now, my ultimate dream is to expand and have a chapter of the foundation in each state and in each country, but that's only going to be as public financing, donations. That's what a nonprofit is. It says that, look, I'm going to stand in the middle. I'm going to provide services to people who can't afford it. I'm going to get the funding for that from third parties. So when we get the public financial backing to expand into other states, then we'll do that. One day, I hope to, like I said, have a chapter everywhere. But right now, we're just doing cases in New York. That's all we can do. We are doing policy work in New York, Pennsylvania, California. We were able to pass a landmark bill in New York, oversight for prosecutors, called the Commission on Prosecutor Conduct. So in terms of what we're doing in California, we're trying to export that reform to California, because generally speaking, and this kind of illustrates the general principle in any business of, trying to work smart, work efficiently,
Absolutely.
rather than work hard necessarily, right? That's part of it, but you'd want to try to work smart. So
Absolutely.
in general, if New York and California both pass the same law, usually the rest of the country goes. So hence us making that strategic decision, of trying to pass the commission in California. And I do want to hold up our work in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, which is a border state to New York, unfortunately one of 12 states that does not currently compensate people who are wrongfully imprisoned. So I can relate to what it's like to be released with nothing and to not be compensated, because my first 5 years of freedom were very, very difficult. Beyond the psychological after effects, beyond the stigma, you were in prison wrongfully, yes, but you were there. You were in prison. So how much of that rubbed off on you? Is it safe to be alone someplace with that? Loneliness, trying to rebuild relations with extended family, technology being different, cell phones, GPS, internet, culture being different, cities and towns with their houses, buildings, and other structures, feeling like in a parallel world. Beyond all of that, and often being passed over for gainful employment, I know what it's like to always be passed over for gainful employment. And, I lack the stability of housing. So I bounced from place to place. At one point, coming within a couple of weeks of being in a homeless shelter before Mercy College, which gave me the scholarship. They upped the ante, allowed me to live on campus, gave me a meal plan. So my point in saying all of that, excuse me if I took a little
No,
long,
you're fine. You're fine.
I know what it is to be with nothing, and hence fighting for compensation for my brethren in Pennsylvania, the same men and women that are, metaphorically in that same position that I was in.
Ah, amazing. I mean, because we take things for granted. Like we don't think about what happens when you're falsely accused and how traumatic. Like 16 years is a long time,
Yeah,
especially for
it
16
really
years.
was. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say I went to mental health professionals four
Yeah,
times a week for 6
good for
years in
you.
dealing with the psychological after effects of being wrongfully in prison, and also in terms of trying to adjust to everyday life. Because remember, there's a limited number of decisions that you can make in
Hmm.
prison. There's an almost unlimited amount of decisions that you make in everyday world. So even just the simple act of going into a supermarket where,
Hmm.
say, if I'm buying tuna fish, there's like 5 different varieties by 5 different companies. They're all priced different. There's different quantities, and income being limited, it's crucial to go the furthest you can on your limited budget. So I mean, I couldn't make a decision. Sometimes I had like maybe 5 or 6 products in my cart, and I couldn't make a decision. I'm like, look, this is too much, and I might literally push the cart away from me and walk out the store and just say, I'm going to come back at another time, and hopefully, I can deal with it then. But it's too much now. And if I was out to dinner with somebody, just being unable to make decision on menus, and I just say, I'll have what he's having, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, yeah. Because and how do you talked about earlier, you talked about rekindling those relationships, right? Because I would imagine, even though you've been cleared, exonerated, like
Yes.
some people in the back of their minds are still looking at you very differently. And
Yeah,
so,
that is correct. Yeah, so I've dealt with that. So when I first got out, whenever I went anywhere, I always carried like a backpack with me, and I used to carry a newspaper article about me being exonerated, so I could show it in case anybody questioned, what is a convicted murderer being out.
yeah,
It helped me that the authorities agreed that I was innocent, so they consented to the reversal and the dismissal on actual innocence grounds. The actual perpetrator was discovered through the DNA testing. He was arrested and convicted. So there wasn't a lot of questioning of innocence, but there was some. That's not to say that there wasn't any at all. I mean, look, how do you know, Linda?
yeah,
Were you there?
exactly.
Is
Yeah.
Deskovic home on some sort of technicality? So those all were challenges, not so much with my extended family, but certainly with society at large. But
Mm.
it was awkward when I'd meet up with members of my extended family because the overwhelming majority of them never came to see me, and the few that did, few and far between. Often, 3-4 years in between visits. So they were new people. I was somebody. I was a changed person. So it took a long time to overcome that.
Absolutely. I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, I commend you for doing the things that it takes to reclaim your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I can only imagine the anxieties that of not being able to make choices that people make every day without even thought, without a second thought. And then here you are, because of your life circumstance, you have this as adult, as a challenge, as a barrier to you living a good life.
Yeah, it was very hard, but much like my time in prison, I mean, I just simply didn't give up. I never
Mm.
stopped trying. I never stopped trying tried and true things. I never stopped trying, my own ideas, outside the box. But since this is the business plug,
Yes,
podcast, I want to share a few things from my experience in setting the nonprofit up. So,
please do.
which in a way, that's a business. It's not for
Yeah,
the purpose of enriching somebody like a traditional business is, but that very much is a business. Okay.
absolutely.
Most people, myself included, when we start nonprofit organizations, we're only thinking about the service side. We're not
Mm.
thinking about the business side. How are we going to raise money? How is it going to be sustainable? We put people on our board, which, IRS requirements, you have to have, a total of 3 people that are there, and they're providing like a type of oversight with the executive director and the government, like a level of oversight in between that. And if something goes wrong, if something is mismanaged, then those people are accountable, not just whoever it is that directly mismanaged.
Exactly.
So, you have to pick board members, that have giving capacity. Every healthy organization, you have people that there's supposed to be a certain amount that they're responsible every year to either give or get. So you're going to give 20 grand, you're going to give however much it is, you're either going to give that or else you're going to go and get that, meaning from people in your network. And there should be other people that they introduce the organization to besides that. So you need people that have capacity, that have a network. You need people that have credibility and credentials, because their credibility accrues to the benefit of the organization. Well, I know that Linda's involved in this charity, and I know that, she's really competent. So there really must be something legit about them. So there should be that. They should be able to help the organization in one aspect or another. They have to attend quarterly meetings as well. So most of us don't think about credentialed people that can actually help. We're just putting true believers on that actually can't really help much at all. And I have to say, that's a great way to crash and burn. So I mean, I started out that way, and I'm now on my third iteration of board members. I mean, be careful the other way. I mean, my second iteration of board members, I had people with all types of credentials, and in so many words, they just blew a bunch of smoke and never actually did anything. So I'm just sharing those tips. And
we're singing out the same hymn book, because I just had that conversation with a nonprofit yesterday about the board, because a nonprofit is just as effective as the board, is only as effective as its board. And a lot of people talk about, well, your board needs to have money. I go against it. I say your board needs to have access.
Correct.
Because access is better than money.
The access is definitely better than money. If you do have the benefit of getting a running start through one person or another, that money should be spent on development. You should have somebody that is specializing in fundraising. You should have a grant writer, not necessarily on staff, but even by contract, but someone that's going to be writing grants, someone that's going to be focused in on raising money with that, an executive director, someone that's going to oversee, because executive directors are also supposed to meet with prospects, with clients.
Absolutely, build a business.
So you have to have what distinguishes you. So I'll share myself case study. So the other organizations in the field, like the Innocence Project, which is who exonerated me, and other organizations in the field, what distinguishes the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice from the Innocence Project? Well, first of all, we were started. Our founder was started by somebody who was exonerated, who used some of the money they got from compensation. So that's a really big one. And the next thing is that we handle both DNA and non-DNA cases. The Innocence Project will only take on DNA cases, and that's only available in 10% of all serious felony cases. So, and then thirdly, we advocate for some policy reforms that the other organizations in the field privately agree with us on, but don't want to spend any time or effort working on those particular reforms. So, for example, I talked about the Commission on Prosecutor Conduct. But the same way I did that, if you start a nonprofit, you have to be able to articulate who your competition is, what do you got in common, how do you distinguish, and all that has to be able to be articulated in 1 or 2 minutes. That's referred, of course, as an elevator pitch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually teach entrepreneurship. And so I got the Business Plug name, the moniker, because that's what I do. I plug businesses in. And I actually work with both nonprofit and for-profit. But I just had this conversation yesterday about a board, right? Because boardsource.org, I don't know if it's .org or .com, is the authority on board members. And there's a booklet that they give out freely that says everything your board members should know. Because a lot of times we get our friends, we get our buddies, we get Pookie them to come be on the board. And like I was telling the young ladies yesterday, it's sexy to be on a good board with a lot of influential people. But being on a board with affluent people does not help you if that board is going nowhere, is doing nothing, it's not making impact. And
exactly.
Yeah, and so we talked about impact statements. Absolutely.
Sure. And look, just to make another shameless business plug, all right, that's the show, right? So aside from my nonprofit, I do have law firm, the law office of Jeffrey Deskovic, PLLC. And my business model there is, so in my capacity as an attorney and founder at the foundation, we work on exonerating people. And once they're exonerated, me and my capacity is in the law firm. I then help those people, partnering with more experienced lawyers, and we partner with them in order to get them compensated. So, I work 50, 60 hours pro bono on the nonprofit side, but should we exonerate anybody, just in the course of then helping them get compensation, there's definitely is a way to monetize that by helping them get compensation, because they're going to need those legal services anyway. And you having just rescued them in the world of lawyers being generally recognized as a shark pool, of course they're going to stay loyal to you. So that's one way that I have been able to earn money as an attorney. And then also sometimes people contact me for personal injury cases, things outside my wheelhouse. So I have other lawyers that I've worked with. And so what I do is I do a quick intake, and then I write the details down. I understand everything. I apply my general knowledge of legal principles. And if I think there's something there, I then connect that client with a lawyer that specializes in particular in that field. And if they sign, all right, then what I do is I monitor progress, and I help maintain the rapport between the client and the lawyer, make sure the case is moving forward, while that other lawyer is the one actually doing the substantive day-to-day work. But I get a referral fee out of doing that.
I love that. And to me, and I work with a group in Nashville that's helping people who have finished their term and re-entered society and are finding difficulty in employment. He started a trucking company to help him. And so in my coaching him was telling him, having wraparound services,
yes,
what you do, that is a bonus. Like that's what sets you apart from other people, because there's a lot of people out here doing a lot of different things. But when a person's needing childcare or housing or food or clothing or any of those things that people who are getting out of being incarcerated can use to get back in their lives, he's going to pay them a nice salary. They're going to have a nice salary. But in addition to that, he's building this wraparound system. So whatever they need, to make sure that they have no reason at all to go back the other way.
Yeah, I think look, that's wonderful, because listen, the number one thing that people need there's two things that they need when they come home. Certainly a job, which provides a legal means of income. It gives a routine, it gives stability. And number two, housing. And I firmly believe that people in general should not move back to the same area where they were in before. You're going to get pulled back into the same thing, probably the same people around the same block who are up to, not really doing anything with their lives. You need to be around, people that are doing positive things. You don't want to, fall into that. The foundation has, I guess it would be the upper left-hand corner on the viewers there, has, our spiel. We have a Patreon, a crowdfunding page, which is for people that are willing to be recurring monthly donors. So dream with me for a half second here, Linda. What if there were 25,000 people that were willing to sacrifice $3 to $5 a month on a recurring monthly basis in order to free innocent people? Who's actually going to miss that? But if all those people were doing that, that would give us close to $1 million, and we could be able to work on freeing even more people, because we could be able to then hire additional lawyers, paralegals, investigators, other essential personnel. So if you're out there, if you're watching, please, by word of mouth, by social media, please share the message far and wide. If you know people that are working in corporations that engage in corporate philanthropy, please just be in the bonnet. And certainly think about contributing yourself, because listen, this is a problem that could happen to you.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up here, is there anything what is the main point you want the people who are watching this to take away from this conversation?
Never give up and make a difference.
Absolutely. Never give up and make a difference. My name is Linda Murray Bullitt. They call me the business plug. I just plugged you in to Jeffrey Deskovic, make sure I say it right, Foundation, who's helping. Thank you. go ahead and you can get his link in wherever you're watching this video. And if you feel moved to donate, make your donation for those people who don't have a voice, who now have a voice and a friend in Jeffrey. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. I'll see you next Sunday on the Business Plugs Mixer. Thank you so much. Have a great week, everyone.